could you explain how the Pico bandage works and makes scars heal quicker? So the Pico bandage is something that used to be still is a machine called a VAC machine. It's based on a VAC. So when I was in the NHS and things, we used a VAC, and the VAC is brilliant. The VAC is vacuum assisted closure, VAC, and it is a sponge. So the VAC is something you use in hospital, and it's a sponge that you put into a wound, then you put an airtight dressing, and then you make a hole in the airtight dressing and you suck on, I guess, like a vacuum, like a vacuum thing. And it's continuous negative pressure. So it's continually sucking that wound. So it's very good if you have a big exudative wound, a big wound that's producing a lot of fluid. So if someone has a big wound, like an abdominal wall breaks down after they've had, a laparotomy and the abdomen all opens up, or, some big wound which is producing a lot of fluid, very hard to keep on top of the dressings, because you put a dressing on, the dressing gets sodden very quickly. You have to change the dressings all the time. It can be really hard because the wound is sort of sat in this sort of wet dressings all the time. So VAC is brilliant for those wounds, absolutely brilliant for those wounds. It's a bit of a palaver because you're attached to a machine that's continuously sucking. It's continuous negative pressure, and it encourages healing, it encourages granulation, and it really does clean wounds beautifully. And then this Pico dressing is something that has come from the VAC, and it's a sort of smaller version of it. And it's like a plaster that you can put on a smaller wound, which does the same principle, sucks the same way, but it's much smaller. It's a smaller volume, and it's a mobile thing. So you can have it at home and you can walk around with it. It's a little box attached to the dressing that continuously sucks. And so it works in the same way in that it is continuous negative pressure. So I wouldn't necessarily say it makes scars heal quicker. It's not really for a scar. It's for a wound. So if you have a wound that's an open wound that's wet, that's producing fluid, then it is good to take away that fluid and have a negative pressure continuously on that wound and make it heal quicker. So it makes the wound heal quicker rather than the scar heal quicker. So, a scar sort of implies a healed wound. So it makes it heal quicker by continuously drawing away that fluid so the dressing doesn't sit. You don't sit with a wet dressing on. So it's good if you have a wound that's maybe producing fluid, maybe not a big wound like the VAC dressing in the hospital would use, but a smaller wound. So very good dressing indeed for that. And it works by having continuous negative pressure. And it's a great thing. It's a great thing. Nice to see you, Junie. How are you doing? Would the Pico have been good for draining a seroma? Nope. No, it wouldn't, Junie. 2 reasons why not, Junie. Number 1 reason, and probably the most important reason, is the volume that the canister holds is not much. And often seromas you just fill the canister very quickly. So the seroma is large volume. But the second reason is a seroma isn't usually a wound. The seroma is underneath the skin. So Pico is good, and VAC, negative pressure therapy and negative pressure wound therapy, NPWT, is good at healing wounds and encouraging granulation tissue. So it's when there's an open wound. So a seroma is a collection of fluid underneath the skin. And so a Pico wouldn't be good at that. I mean, a drain might be good at that. That's a negative pressure. So you put a tube in, which has negative pressure into the space and drains it. But it wouldn't be a Pico because the skin's usually intact with the seroma. You put a Pico dressing on, nothing will happen because it'll just be sucking the skin and do anything. Would the Pico be good for an uplift and implants? Well, only if it's broken down terribly. Well, not terribly, but only if it's broken down, Natalie. So if it's broken down and there's a wound that's producing fluid, then yes. But if it's not broken, so to be honest, it's very rare to use it. I'm trying to think. I'm sure I have used it once. What was it? A tummy tuck or something I had a problem with? But it's very rare. This is going back years. It's not a common thing to use, but it is. So it's not a routine. I mean, if you just had an uplift and implants, you wouldn't expect to have a Pico dressing. It would be something only rarely if you've got a problem wound. But most times they heal up. You might get a little bit of breakdown. Might need a dressing on for a bit. You just change the dressing. Maybe even if you just change the dressing every day, that's okay. But if you're changing dressing 3 or 4 times a day, then you think, flipping out, this is no good. That's when you might be thinking about something like a Pico. But again, you can't handle a lot of volume. So if it's got a lot of volume, then you might need something more. But yeah, not a routine thing for an uplifted implants, Natalie. But if you had a problem with a wound with an uplifted implants, yes, it might well be an option. Save me a few £100. Thank you. For the Pico, they weren't going to charge you for the Pico, were they, Natalie? God dear. What? Because they were going to have a Pico and an uplift and implant. Oh, good. Yeah. No, I wouldn't routinely do it, Natalie. If you use a Pico, and Pico is expensive, I didn't want to say anything. It is expensive, a Pico, but usually we would absorb the cost of that. You wouldn't put that onto the patient, especially if they've got a problem with a wound. You're not going to charge them extra, are you? Well, maybe you are. I don't know. It's a new thing that's on social media, and people are raving about them. My clinic has mentioned anything I haven't even asked them. Just I keep seeing people raving about them on social media, so I was going to buy one myself. What, a Pico dressing? Raving on social media, are they? Blimey. Okay. What are they raving about? Been around for a while. VAC's been around for years. Pico, yeah, no, I wouldn't buy one. Wouldn't buy one, Natalie. Why? Because you haven't got a wound. No, I wouldn't buy one. I mean, to be honest with you, a nurse has to put it on. I wouldn't be putting it on myself. They're a bit, I mean, I think the modern one, when I was back in the day, they're quite a palaver to put on. Certainly a VAC is. I think the Pico is probably a lot easier to manage. But still, you'd want to be sort of supervised by a nurse, really. I wouldn't recommend buying a Pico dressing and using it yourself in any way, shape or form. I think it needs to be overseen by a nurse, definitely. Yeah, hasn't even, yeah, Pico. Yeah, well, it's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't go down that route there, Natalie. I'd just, especially if you haven't had some, assuming you haven't had surgery, have the surgery, see how you go, you'll probably be fine. You're very unlikely to need one, I would say. Oh, hold on, Natalie. Just to explain quickly, people were saying the Pico helps with scars, so that's why I thinking about purchasing one. I didn't even know that it was what it was for, but I do now. So thank you so much. Yeah, it's not for scars. Yeah, it's for wounds. Yeah. So it's not. You wouldn't put it on a healed skin. Would you? I got it wrong. I think so. I think about the same thing. Talk amongst yourself. Thanks. Have a hot drink. I'm going to have a good on you. You get yourself a Horlicks, Olivia. Let's do a bit of market research. Pico dressing, sorry. Just check before you go that I haven't been giving you bad advice. Pico. Pico bandage. Here we go. See what I mean? This internet's really slow. See? I mean, I know I was late, but this is what I'm up against. Oh, man. Anyway, I think that's what it is. I mean, that I've put in, but look, it's going round and round and round. I mean, is it my house? I mean, that is exceptionally snowy. You wonder why I was late today. You're wondering? Well, I think we can all agree that that is an unacceptable length of time to wait for a web page to load. Anyway, I'll go. Pioneer Riley. Anyway, we'll just assume that's what it is, shall we? Is it the vacuum thing? If it's the vacuum thing, then yeah, I'll do it on my laptop here. Then it's. Here we go. No, MP. It may heal. Yeah, negative pressure wound therapy. Yeah, it is. Pico bandage. It is. I'm all right. It is. Yeah, it is, Natalie. I've just checked. It is. It's a negative pressure thing. It's not for a scar. It's for a wound. It's not for a scar. You're always late. Yeah, thanks for that, Olivia. Very kind of you. You wait next week. You know. I saw that Dr. Frank Ploger at B Clinic in Brussels is using the Pico dressing, but I think you have to pay $250 extra for them. People are raving about them. why would you rave about them? You only need it for a wound that's a problem. I think some of this is psychological, you know. I think if you put one of these on and you pay £250 more for it, and you think, yeah, that's great, my wound healed really well. I mean, you hope the wound heals really well without it. All I can say is about my experience. And my experience, I wouldn't use it unless the wound broke down. And I hope the wound doesn't break down. But in what were you asking, Natalie? Was it a lift with implants or a lift or something? It often does break down at that T junction. But again, it normally just needs normal dressings. It doesn't need a Pico dressing. So that's the beauty of plastic surgery. I'll tell you, it's an art, not a science. Everyone's got a view about this and that, and they'll tell you this is the best thing in the world and this is fantastic. But you've got to be a bit careful because there's a lot of non-science about it, and people saying, yeah, you need that, you need this, yeah, it's fantastic. And you look at the science, you think, hold on a minute, do you really need that? You know. Anyway, nice to know you. I knew you were. Olivia, oh God, happy to wait. Okay, you're so right. Yeah, big up myself. Right, let's wrap this up, team, because I think we've all got to go and have a Horlicks. And so I will be seeing you next week. For goodness sake, get some questions in, because I've got to be honest, I'm a bit worried. It's a bit like, a bit quiet out there. Otherwise, I'll have to make some up. All right, and nobody wants that. Okay, so let's have some questions in, and I will see you next week, even if I have to make some questions up myself. So 7 o'clock next Tuesday, I'll be seeing you then. Have a good evening and keep going with the lockdown and keep staying away socially from everybody else around you. Hasta la vista. Ciao. See what I mean about the internet? I mean, is that stopped?